Hi and welcome to today's Mishna Brura. Today we're in chapter 92, numbers 4, 5, 6, and 7. Number 4, Tzarich lirchotz yadav. You need to wash his hands b'mayim, in water, im yeshlo if he has, v'im ein lo if he does not have, tzarich lachazor achareihim. He needs literally to return after them, but it means to go around looking for them, ad parsa, until parsa, which is about 4 kilometers. Vahanimili, these words, Aramaic. Keshehu holech b'derech, when he is walking on the road. Vahamayim nimtzaim lefanav, and the water is found before him. So he's traveling, he could go another 4 kilometers and then he'll find water and be able to wash his hands for prayer. But if he needs to return behind him, backwards, limkomayim, to a place of water, admil choser, to a mil he returns, he goes back, about 1 kilometer, yoter mi mil ein choser, more than a kilometer he does not go back. V'im mityarei, and if he is afraid, sheya'avor zman tefillah, that it will pass the time for prayer, yenakeh yadav, he should clean his hands, bitzror, on a stone, or be'afar, or on dirt, or v'chol mideh, or anything that menakeh, that cleans. So we'd say maybe like a towel or something like that, even if you haven't got water, so you use something else. Number 5, rachatz yadav shacharit, if he washed his hands in the morning, vehisiach da'ato, and means he removed his thoughts, his mind. He removed his mind, he lost focus on his hands. He wasn't thinking about the purity, protecting the purity of his hands. Tzuchim netilat litfilah. He needs to wash them for prayer. Im yesh lo mayim, if he has water. Even though he does not know for them any dirt. I don't know that my hands are dirty or unclean. Look at them, they look clean. I can't think of something I might have touched that would have made them unclean. Nevertheless, I should wash. But not to say a bracha. And if he does not have water prepared, he doesn't need to go back and wash. Even if his hands were dirty, and he washes them for prayer, he does not say a blessing. So there's no blessing for washing your hands before prayer. Number 6, ha'omeid betfilah, somebody standing in the middle of prayer, v'nizkar shenaga bimkom tunaf, and he remembered that he touched a place that was dirty. So let's say a person went to the toilet without washing their hands. Now they're standing in davening and they realize that they didn't wash their hands. It is sufficient with cleaning through, again, dirt. It's ironic, I know, to clean it with dirt, but you mean like wipe your hands on the dry sand, or tzorot, or a stone, or mechakech yadav, or he rubs his hands bakotel, against the wall. So wipe them again, even in the middle of the Amidah, so you will wipe your hands even if you can't wash them. Number 7, makom metunaf, a dirty place. Right, what does that mean? Hainu, this is makomot hamechusim ba'dam, places that are covered in a person. Lefi sheyesh behem mulei zaya, because there are in them beads of sweat. V'chein im chikech harosh, and so too if he scratched his head. V'lechein asur liga bimkomot elu b'sha'a she'omdim b'tfilah. Therefore, it is forbidden to touch these places at the time that he is standing in prayer, or osek b'Torah, or at the time that he is engaged in Torah. V'chein b'tzoat ha'ozen v'ha'af, and so too the waist of the ear and the nose. In other words, earwax and snot. Ki'im al yirei beged, except through a cloth. In other words, so he can use his hanky to clean out his ears or his nose during davening, but not his hands, because then he has disqualified himself for prayer. Alrighty, Mishna Brura says, Lichotz needs to wash his hands before davening. Hatam al the reason for this, Ein Le'el, Beresim and Dalid Mishna Brura, take a look earlier, chapter 4 in the Mishna Brura, V'gam letfilat mincha v'arvit tzorich netila, and also for the prayers of Mincha and Ma'ariv, he needs to wash. Uklakama and Beresim Gimel Sepet, as we'll see later on, chapter 233, paragraph 2. V'data Rambam, the opinion of the Rambam, where Aramaic he needs to wash his hands. And he did not wash his hands. And also he did not clean them with a stone. Right? In other words, he didn't wash them with water or even wipe them. Even post facto. His prayer is not a prayer. That he would need to go back and do that Amidah again since he didn't wash his hands. V'tzarich iyun ledina, it requires investigation for the law. Dina is Aramaic. V'ayin be'ver halacha sheb'arnu de'en chozer mitpalel. And take a look in the Ber Halacha that we clarified that you do not need to go back and daven again. So even though the Rambam said that, we do not follow the Rambam in this instance. But wash your hands with water. And drying is not me'akev, is not an obstacle in this. In other words, he washed his hands, but he forgot to dry them, it's fine. As it is an obstacle when it comes to washing for eating. You can't eat when your hands are still dirty, or your hands are still wet, beg your pardon, from washing them. But you can daven when your hands are still wet from washing them. Tzarich, you need v'davke k'shiyodeh shemeluch lachot. So this is speaking about how you need to go back you need to go forward 4 kilometers or back 1 kilometer. Davka when he knows that they are dirty. Aval bistam yadayim, but with stam, unqualified hands. In other words, I don't know that they're clean. I don't know that they're dirty. The stam makel is lenient. Besamuch sif hey, a little bit later in chapter 5, Ayin Shem, take a look there. Lachzor, you need to go back. Ve'im yitztarech al yirezeh lelech achar kach yechidi. If he will need, through this, to go afterwards alone, he'll now be walking around by himself. Or shelo yuchal al yirezeh lehagia limchoz chevtzo ba'od yom. Or he will not be able through this to reach his destination whilst it's still his destination, ba'od yom. So he's worried that through washing he won't reach his destination while it's still day. Ein tzarich lachzor klal. He does not need to go back at all. So yes, you have to go and wash your hands and everything, but not if through that you're going to end up losing your traveling companions or not getting where you're supposed to get during the day. Holeich b'derech, someone's walking on the road. V'rochev, riding. Dino b'kol zeh kama halech b'raglav. The law in all of this is like walking on his legs. Gam ein chiluk bein derech ra latov. Also, there's no difference between a bad road and a good road. In other words, it makes no difference if it's got nice tarmac or if it's bushwhacking through the forest. The distances are the same. And all this is only when he knows with certainty that he will find water there. Aval b'safek law, but if it's a doubt, then he doesn't have to keep going. Lachorav, behind him, v'kol shekain. How much more so? Keshehu yoshev, when he is sitting beveito in his home. Debavada chav lachzor lechachila. Certainly, he needs to go back lechachila in the first instance. If he is able to go back and get the water, achar mayim, after water, in yodea she'erav meluch lachot, if he knows that his hands are dirty. Ad mil, the distance there is 1 kilometer. V'harbe poskim sovrim de mil atzmo dino keyotzer mimil. And many of the halachic authorities hold, Aramaic word, that a mil itself, its law is like more than a mil. In other words, it says until a kilometer. So is a kilometer included, or is that already further than you have to go? So the many authorities say that that's already further. So in other words, less than a mil, which again, around 1 kilometer. Zman hatfilah, if you would miss, you're worried that through going to get the water, you'll miss the time for prayer, legamre, completely. In other words, not worried that you'll miss praying with sunrise, which is the best. Worried that you'll miss praying in the time of prayer. And if he's in a place where there are 10 people praying, and if he'll go around hunting for water, will pass the time for davening with the community, so he'll still daven in time but not with the community. The Bach wrote, even though he has time in the day, he doesn't need to go and find it, and he will clean, but midday with something that cleans. In other words, wipe your hands, don't wash them. Yenake yadav, clean his hands. This means he does not need to go back to find water. Maybe the time will pass. How much more so when it comes to, right? When it comes to the saying of Shema, certainly. Asur lo lehamtin. It is forbidden for him to wait al mayim for water. Im yesh chashasha, which is the Aramaic for concern or worry. Chashash in Hebrew. If there is a concern, shemi avor azman, perhaps the time will pass. Eli yenake, you should clean them, wipe them. Vayikra and say Shema. V'yesh harbe poskim shesovrim. There are many authorities who hold the v'kriyat Shema, when it comes to the saying of Shema, techef, immediately. When it arrives the beginning of its time, if he does not have water, clean them and say Shema, and don't wait for water. Chapter 233, that reference, because that's where we explain exactly the time for mincha. He washed his hands and then lost focus, removed his mind, stopped thinking about his washed hands, and just went about his daily business. Didn't, go out to a place where his hands were definitely filthy, but he didn't stand a place where they'd be definitely clean. Rotzelamai, this means to say, Shehiflig harbe beina netila letfila. That hiflig means like a distance. There's a great distance between washing and davening. Until he stopped thinking about it. For kol sheken, how much more so? That it is relevant to say that he changed his thoughts between washing for shacharit and davening mincha. Tzrichim netila needs washing. The kaven shesirdato mishmiratan, since he lost focus from guarding them. Yadayim askaniotem, hands are busy. Asek means involvement. Hands are busy. Hands move and touch things all the time. Veshema nagu b'makom atinofet, and perhaps they touched a place of dirt. Letfilah for prayer. Aval Torah, but for Torah uli brachot lekriyat Shema, for Torah and brachot and for Shema. Stam yadayim, unqualified hands we don't know about. Kashay rotain are kosher. If you didn't dirty your hands, you just didn't wash them, you still can't daven. You need to go wash them. But for Shema, that you can say. Aval b'siman dalet katav Pri Megadim, but in paragraph 4, the Pri Megadim wrote, "Delekriyat Shema psulot stam yadayim," that for Shema, unqualified hands are no good. So there is such an opinion, but not everybody holds for that. Ein tzarich, you do not need. Aval pikein, nevertheless. Tzarich lenakot otam b'miridinki, you need to wipe them. We're saying that wipes, that cleans. The dilma, because perhaps mudbakbo me'at tzo'ah, there is stuck, attached to them, a little bit of waste or zaya, sweat, al yadei hanegia b'mkomot hamechusim, through touching places that are covered. V'yitzkanach al yadei nikayon, and he should clean. They would be cleaned through the cleaning them, through wiping them. V'davka b'stam yadayim, and only with unqualified hands, meikla mechaber is lenient. Avalim nagabam makom etunah, but if he knows that he touched a dirty place, v'kol shekain kashe asat shachar, how much more so when he went to the toilet? Av b'tfilat mincha, even for mincha tzarich lachzor achar mayim, you need to go around looking for water. Ha'omeid b'tfilah, somebody standing in the middle of prayer. Avalim omeid b'kriyat, and he doesn't remember if he washed his hands, so don't worry about it. But if he's standing in the middle of Shema or Psukat Zimra, he needs to go wash his hands, because after all he can. V'nizkar shenaga, and he remembered that he touched. Nakataki, it mentions this, that he remembered that he touched. Mishum delachadchila asul liga b'tfilah, gufa utlakaman. Because in the first instance, it's forbidden for him to touch in tefillah gufa itself. Utlakaman, as we'll see later on. Aval wadinim naga b'tefillah gufa. But it's the same law, huadin, if he touched during tefillah itself, that he'd now have to wipe his hands. It just doesn't say, what if he touched himself in a covered place while he was davening, because nobody is allowed to do that, so obviously he wouldn't be doing that. Number 7, or osek b'torah, if he's engaged in learning Torah, uvidi avad, so then he can't be touching these places. Uvidi avad, post facto, die b'nikayon, it is sufficient to wipe them, ba'alma, generally, to just wipe them. Le Torah u levrachot for Torah brachot av al pi sheyesh lo mayim, even though he has water. Vayin le'el b'sof siman dalet b'Mishna Brura. Take a look earlier at the end of chapter 4 in the Mishna Brura. Vim naga batit v'refesh, and if he touched mud and other kind of mud, efshar, it is possible da'afilu lechadchila sharikach. It is possible that even in the first instance this is permissible. Aval le'el b'sof siman dalet, but earlier at the end of paragraph 4, Katav Pri Megadim, sorry, the end of chapter 4, Katav Pri Megadim, that Tzarech Lenakot Mitchila. The Pri Megadim wrote that he needs to clean first, Av L'divrei Torah, even to study Torah. V'chein nire lahachmir lechadchila parefesh. And so too it seems to go strict, that it's appropriate to go strict. Lechadchila, in the first instance, parefesh, when you're dealing with mud. Ha'ozen ve'af, the waist of the ears and the nose. Ve'agro Michael Bazeh, the Vilna Gaon was lenient in this. V'chein katav b'shari tshuva b'shem Moragatzia, and so too they wrote in Shari Tshuva in the name of Moragatzia that the waist of the ears and the nose is not really such a problem. It's really sweat and covered places and certainly excrement that would be much more severe. That's it for today.